page 148. We'll actually learn today inside the Maamar. The last page before the end is 148, 149. Zochor Chasidus, and we're learning here about details of Chochmah and Bina, and within Chochmah itself, Haskalah and Hasaga. I want to reread the mashal that the Rebbe gave from a Rav and Talmud that I thought was brilliant and clarified for us what he's getting at. So let's go to 148. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 lines from the bottom, the last two words, Uverav Talmud. Uverav Talmud, we see by a teacher and a student. In the Kol's man, Shat Talmud lo yinesatzem etzlo inyan, as long as the idea, inyan means the idea. Nit atzem, the root word is etzem. Nit atzem means it did not become his essence, his etzem. So in Hebrew, the word is nisatzem or nitatzem. So as long as the Talmud, the student, it didn't become, the idea did not become by the student's essence, which means, what does that mean? And this is a definition, Avram, of what it means for something to be your essence. Shehu bi'atzmoi eino yodeya oisoi al-borer. The person himself does not understand it and know it clearly. In other words, the person might be a great parakeet, might have a great memory and can repeat verbatim what the teacher said. But when you start asking the person, could you explain this and that, and the person is left standing there speechless. Why? Why? Because it's not his. He doesn't own it. He has something else that he acquired as an adjunct to who he is. This is the meaning, Yonason, that the thing has not become nisatzim. And just know that for anything in life to become nisatzim with you is a lot of work. A lot of work. Right? I tell the story of Rabbi Hirschsprung, the chief rabbi of Montreal, the former chief rabbi, who was a survivor and a boichen, someone who tested students who came to be registered in the Yeshiva Chachmei Lublin of Maamar Shapiro in the late 20s and early 30s. And he knew Shas by heart on his fingers. You could test him anywhere. He could read for you what the Gemara says by heart. He had a photographic memory. So it was one Tisha B'Av. I heard this from a son of his. So you heard it from the son of the rabbi, of Rabbi Hirschsprung. He was in shul after Tisha B'Av, and he was learning Gemara. Everyone knows that after fasting for 24 to 26 hours, you're hungry and you run home to eat. Or if you have something in shul, you eat in shul. And Rabbi Hirschsprung is by himself, everyone has gone home, and he's learning Gemara. And his wife notices he's not home. It's already half an hour or 45 minutes or so after Tisha B'Av is over, and she's made a meal to feed her illustrious husband, and he's not home. So she figures, knowing him, he's in the Beis Medrash, he's in shul. So she runs over to the shul, and she sees him learning Gemara. And she says, Pinchas, that was his first name, Pinchas. And she spoke with the Galician Yiddish accent. Mendar Fessen, Pinchas, We must eat. You need to eat. And he looks up at his wife with all the respect. He says to her, Atug, I'll say it in Yiddish because it's so beautiful. Atug, a day. Was man lernt nicht Gemara, a day that one does not learn their quota of Gemara, because Tisha B'Av until midday you're not allowed to learn your regular classes of Gemara and all that. Atug was man lernt nicht the Gemara, tur man nicht essen, you're not allowed to eat. I ask you, how many people do you know from the rabbis and rabbanim and mashpiyim and chasidim and everything has a feeling that to them learning Gemara is more satiating than eating food? Don't think that Rabbi Hirschsprung wasn't hungry. I tell you, he was hungry. Like a human being, after not eating 24 to 26 hours, is hungry. But he took he filled his hunger with Gemara. Because when he learned Gemara, it was so part of who he was, knowing him a little bit and observing him, that the Gemara that he learned was better than the supper that his wife prepared for him who was waiting at home. And this is what I say when we talk about something being nisasim with you, becoming who you are. You know, it's so easy to say, oh yeah, this is why I became religious. I learned Torah, I do chesed. This is who I am. There's an expression in Yiddish. Bis sie kommt zu dem Puppik. You ever hear that expression? Until it touches your belly button. A pupik is a belly button. So the Yiddish expression is until it's about you. Once it's about you, everything else goes out the window. If it's not about you, then you don't care. But if it's going to impact you in any way to make you uncomfortable, or you, right, you're not going to give into that because you come first. That's when you are not one with the essence of Hashem and Torah. That means you're one with the essence of yourself and ego and selfish needs. Being one with Hashem and Torah means that the cause comes first. And like I said yesterday, lahavdil, we could learn from these goyim that are getting on planes. I read about this from probably America and elsewhere, and going to Ukraine to fight for the country. That's more of kind of their country's their essence. I mean, as much as a human being can get to an essence, and it's a Gentile, not a Jew, and Dr. Rebbe is already at the end of chapter 1, and Tanya discusses the difference between a Jew's self-sacrifice and a non-Jew's self-sacrifice, citing the Gemara. But as much as a human being is able, has the potential to bond with God and become one with God, as much as that's humanly possible, this would be an example. You put aside everything and you say, I have to fight for my country. But you leave your wife back, and your children, and your work, and guess what? You might end up dying and being killed and never return. Doesn't make a difference. My country is my lifeline, my blood, my DNA. This is lahavdil by non-Jews. So how much more so by us Yidden. And the Rebbe, go back to the text, the Rebbe says here that the student who is not able to clearly on his own explain and repeat what the teacher said, it's because the ideas that he was taught by his teacher are not yet one. Eini yochel lisrachik min harav. And therefore, this student cannot distance himself from his teacher because he always needs his teacher to teach him. Because on his own, he wouldn't know it. V'im yisrachik, and if the student will distance himself, yenishkach etzloi, the ideas that the teacher taught him will be forgotten. It happens every day. It happens every day, Yonason. We learn every day. We learned in yeshiva. We learned from rabbis and rabbanim and rebbes and all that. And we forget. When we're in the shiur, when we're in middle of learning and discussing and our teachers are there, it's vibrant and active and we remember. As soon as we go out of that misgeret, of that domain, we forget. Why? Because it hasn't become who we are. I always joke with my kids over the years as they were growing up, do you forget to eat? Do you forget to dress? Baruch Hashem, when we're hungry, we don't forget to eat. We gravitate naturally to the food and to sleep and to pleasure and to vacation and everything else. You don't need someone to remind you. When it comes to calling your grandfather or your father Shabbos, Erev Shabbos, I forgot. I'm busy. I'm talking to myself. Because it's not us. It's not one with us. It's so easy to say, I'm one with you. Yeah, you're really one with me. Then don't you want to be greeted Good Shabbos, Erev Shabbos? You like that feeling. So if you like that feeling, why don't you share that feeling with someone else who you say is inseparable from you? Guess what? Maybe they're not inseparable. And maybe that feeling of closeness and love is wonderful, but it's not essence. Essence is very different. The story I told you the other day of Reb Mendel and Reb Baron Yosef is a story of essence. Shlomo Melech, let's talk Shlomo Melech for a moment. Shlomo Melech has so many psukim, Moshe, which I'm sure you in your work, in your art, probably you use psukim from Mishlei and other places to identify certain, right? Shlomo Melech, if you take a look at Shir Hashim, a Song of Songs, which is a holy love story, he talks about Chaylas Ava. Chaylas means sick love. Love sick. I crave you, I need you, I'm in love with you, and I become sick when I don't have you. That's begashmius. Your spouse goes away on a trip, even if it's one day, the feeling you should have is, I miss her. That's a Torah attitude. It's not a 60s rock and roll Elvis Presley attitude. Shlomo Melech says it. Nevertheless, that's called Chaylas Ava, and it's a level of Ava. The Alter Rebbe talks about it, by the way, in Likutei Torah. If you want to really understand what lovesick is, learn the Alter Rebbe's Maimorim, and you'll have such an understanding what real lovesick should be for Hashem. It's fascinating. And what's his explanation briefly? It's that I realize without you I can't exist. Says the Alter Rebbe, even that is not essence. Wow. You know why? Because there, the reason for my love is based on a reason. I can't exist. Who are you? I can't exist. In other words, your existence is important to you. So you must have the lover. Is that the highest level of love? No. It's a great level. It's an accomplishment. But it's still associated with the I. I need to be around. Who are you? Says the Alter Rebbe. After he explains, Yonason, the great level of Cholas Ava, right away he says, but that's not the essence. That's what we're learning here, Moshe. That a student who has a teacher and learns from their teacher, but if what he learns from his teacher has not become who he is, as soon as he distances himself from his teacher, he is no longer one with the teacher. And now you understand what it says in the Holy Torah, that Yehoshua, who was Moshe's successor, lo yamish mitoicha oyel, he didn't separate and move from the tent of Moshe. Now you understand what it means. It means that Yehoshua was such a student that even when he was elsewhere, he always felt Moshe's my teacher. It doesn't mean to say he didn't go on a vacation. When you learn this pasuk Avram in the Torah, it says Yehoshua did not leave the tent of Moshe. How do you understand that? He was always there. So you think he never went on a vacation? He never went out of town? He never went to a business meeting? Wrong. It doesn't. Of course he did, because if it was necessary for him to do that, he did it. But it means that wherever he was, what was his consciousness? His consciousness was I never left the tent of Moshe. I am a walking Moshe. And I only do what Moshe wants. I cannot do anything else. Another pasuk in the Torah. I'm bringing these psukim to support the idea. Bilam is asked by Balak to bless the Jews, right? He gets ready. He wants to give a big curse, right? What does it say in the Torah? I tried saying the words, I couldn't desecrate the words of God. God didn't allow it to come out of my mouth. So it's explained. What does that mean? That Bilam Bilam was governed by Hashem, that even if he wanted to curse the Jews, he couldn't. Because in this area, his free will was stripped. So here's an example that one's essence in this area was removed from him, because that's what God wanted. That's what we're talking about here. So I gave you numerous examples to clarify what the Rebbe is saying. Let's go back to the text. I just want to say that these type of things that we're talking about this right now, at a Hasidic Farbrengen, this is what Hasidim would think about, a real Hasidic Farbrengen. Of course, every one of them was doing great things, especially in the hardest of time in Russia, when putting on tefillin with a Jew or teaching a child in Cheder was self-sacrifice in Stalin's time. You could be shot, sent away. But you think they spoke about that when they came together and they said, L'chaim, hey, you know who I am? I sat and the KGB agents were there, or even implied that? You got to be kidding. Because they consider themselves so non-important as far as ego. And who are there? Why? Because that's why they were created. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. They were here for one and one thing only, to do Hashem's work, as in their case, related by the tzaddik, by the Rebbe. And Hasidim would chide each other about this. This was in the good old days when Farbrengen still was authentic and genuine and it was about this type of things, not about how many people you put film on and this and that. It's all nice and good, but that's not what a farbrengen was. Okay, that's not what the authentic Chabad farbrengen was. It was, and you'll see this in the previous episode. It was Jews getting together, Chassidim getting together. And how do we all prove our avodas Hashem? Oh, how do you prove your service of God? Then you got to let me get in, and you got to go in, and you got to look at yourself, and you say, are you one with Hashem? Is your avodah? Is there any sense of ego there whatsoever? And these are the type of things that they were discussing. You say you have love for Hashem. You don't say it. You really think you have love for Hashem? Really? Or is it love for yourself? Or is it love for your country? Or is it love for your wife and kids? Who is the love for? This, and you say a niggin, and you say l'chaim, and you have someone who's talking, elder chassid, or even someone who's genuine, who's able to talk about these things, not someone who can talk very nicely, speaks well, but is so far from these ideas. Such a person would be wiped away out of Hasidic farbrengen. Because the Mishtatfim the worst thing was fake. In Lahavdil, in Bob Grant's, the old New York talk show host who would make me laugh, and so I repeat, that's fake, phony fraud. You're a fake, phony fraud. Get off my radio. Get off the airwaves. And if I bring it, you were fake, phony fraud. They demolished you, and you knew never again to come to a farbrengen with your false sense of pride and ego and narishkeit. That was the beauty of a farbrengen, because it was that one corner, that one area of life where you have to be real. You have to be real. You could fool others. You could fool yourself. But when you come to a farbrengen with the right people, you ain't going to fool them, and they're going to let you have it. So you talk about Reb Mendel Futterwas, Moshe mentioned the other day. Reb Mendel was such a Jew. That was one of the things that made him special. Besides the self-sacrifice and everything else, was he didn't let you kid yourself. I remember conversations I had with him, as a teenager, and over the years I've shared some with you, The number one thing was he went right into my bones. And he just laid it in. And, this is a man. How could you not listen to a man who sat for 9 years in prison in Siberia and gave his life? I mean, this is real. I mean, so when a man like that tells you, stop kidding yourself. Are you really doing this for God, or are you doing it for yourself? You listen. If you have a sense of honesty and you want to grow and you want to be better. So this here in the Maamar, the Rebbe is explaining that a Talmud, a student, to needs to be one with the teacher if they want that in their life. And otherwise, as soon as they leave the domain and platform of the teacher, they forget the teacher and they forget the material. That's what we're learning. V'gam mikabel, 6 lines from the top, to the bottom. 7 lines from the bottom. V'gam mikabel stiros v'halomos. When you're not one with the teacher, concealments and limitations and disguise become part. You receive them. In other words, you don't know how to explain. Yeah, man. Someone says to you, like I said last year, what is Chabad Chasidus? What is Yiddishkeit? What is whatever you don't have an answer. That means you're not one yet with Chabad Chasidus, which is fine. We're getting there. With God, in other words, anytime, any piece of information, Yonason, that you study, and after you study it, and after you hear a shir, and you say you understand, and someone goes and throws you a curveball, someone throws a question at you and challenges you, and you can't explain it, that means the question has stumped you. And you know why? Because you have not yet won with the information. Conversely, when the issue and the idea does become part of your essence, that you yourself know and understand the truth of the idea, then you can go away from your teacher. And then, guess what? All questions and all issues won't bother you even when they're thrown at you. You hear that? Insecurity. I think what the Rebbe is touching upon here is that what we would call today being insecure. Why is someone insecure? Because he's not one with the issue. So therefore, he's insecure. And he's thrown for a loop. But if you become one with the issue, then basically it's your teacher, your rabbi, and the idea that's here now. And it's truth. But Mela, the questions, even if they're good questions, don't make a change. I told you, when I was learning Tanya with someone for many, many years, and he asked me the question about the end of chapter, actually no, in the beginning of our learning, he asked me the question about the end of chapter 1, the difference between non-Jews and Jews, and he was really bothered by it. I explained it to the best of my ability the way I heard it from Reb Yoel, my mashpia, but I can't say that he understood it the way I understood it. So we both agreed, let's go on. Then towards the chapters 40 and 50, like 6, 7, 8 years later, it took us 10 years to finish the 53 chapters of Tanya. We learned once a week for an hour each week, and we learned it in depth. I asked him, you still have the question? He says, I don't have the question anymore. So I said, you understand the answer? I says, no, I don't understand the answer, but I don't care. Because in the beginning, when he was new to Chasidus and to Torah, the question disturbed him. As he went on and he became about Teshuvah and he became connected, the question, it would be nice if I can understand it, and maybe I understand it a little better, but it doesn't bother me. I'm committed. That's what we need today. What's most important for ourselves and kids and grandkids and people around us is the commitment to the bottom line. That even if you're going to have all the questions in the world, and even though you'll be in all kinds of environments and people will challenge you, this is who I am. That's it. This beard is who I am. You don't like it? It's your issue. Don't marry me. Don't hire me. Chazak. With your beliefs. Chazak. That's what it says here. It says here, V'eina mekabel stiras v'halamos. He doesn't accept contradictions. Maybe for you, the question here, there's a contradiction. Not for me. I'm at peace. But. Keep the but for yourself. Okay, tomorrow we will continue from Zeu B'Seichel V'Asoga Pratis. Okay? Seid gesund, everyone. I have another shir. Take care. Atzlacha. Bye-bye.